Okay. Okay, and welcome everyone to Witch Bitch, where we talk the real tea. And today we have Jen Vilz on once again. I'm so excited to have you on again, Jen. Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
coming back.
Yes. Oh, we have so much to talk about today. Um, Today's topic is making room for yourself, for all parts of yourself, to allow rest and to allow also the opposite of rest, whatever it is that you feel, making room for whatever it is that you are that day. Because I know I can safely say for myself that every day I wake up as a new human being, in a sense, and every day looks different. And it's important that this is why I can't do routine, because if I did routine, it just the version of myself that woke up, it just wouldn't suit that version of myself. So yeah, today we're going to be discussing this a little bit more, diving deeper into what this topic really means for each of us. So Jen, for you, like we were just saying before we went live, that this topic really blends into your life right now very well. Yeah, tell us what you've been up to and everything that's been going on since last time we spoke.
Yeah, well, it has been a while. Thanks. It's been a while since I've been on the show last, and a lot. So I've actually just recently gone through weight loss surgery. I am currently 24 and a lighter.
Wow.
I feel like that's body weight as well as the stuff that I was holding on to spiritually, and I feel the difference. It took me a while to get to that place of knowing I needed to really start to take care of myself and my health, because our body is our vessel, our spirit or a soul with a body, and a lot of the times we forget that, and we can kind of not look after ourselves as much as we should. So I took a massive step of putting my health and myself first, which I have spent the majority of my life not doing. And as a mum, I'm sure you can contest to this, Claudia, sometimes we busy worrying about everybody else that we forget ourselves.
Yeah, 100%.
And I think it's a massive, massive reflection on my part. I did that for. And it's not to say it's a bad thing, because we're motherly, we love to care for others. But I feel like it comes back to the whole you can't fill from an empty cup sort of saying.
Yeah.
And with my line of work also, it kind of falls into that as well, because, I can't kind of go into too much of who I work for, but
Yeah, we know.
it's around the domestic violence and how heavy that can be and what that takes on, and just take a step back and really think to myself, okay, if I don't do something now when it comes to health and like my overall being, then what's the next 10 years going to look like, right? How am I going to be able to live and help others around me if I can't even help myself? So it was a real massive step for me to step into that. And since then, the stuff that has been happening for me, and this is why it's really, really true when you go to psychic mediums and all these types of things, when they say self-love is a massive part of your journey, or it should be, because that's when you start to give to yourself, the universe kind of perks its ear up and is like, oh, okay, it feels like she's ready. Let's start giving her the stuff that she deserves, or that they deserve. And that's been happening to me. And it's blowing my mind each and every day that I wake up.
Wow. That's amazing. I'm so happy for you, and I can relate.
Yeah,
to
I was going to say
everything.
she can relate.
Yeah, because I'm going through a lot of I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but I'm going through a similar thing where I'm going through procedures and I'm seeing doctors for physical issues in my body. Um, and it's really hard. Like I'm sure you can relate. I mean, especially when you've got that spiritual element too, where it kind of the spiritual ego kind of manipulates you into saying, oh, don't go down the medical route, or like it really judges you for any decision that you make. You feel judgment no matter what,
And creates fear.
and it creates fear. And also I think as a mum too, like you have to break through a lot of barriers of programming of like, oh, I can't do this for myself and things like that.
Yeah, like the mother guilt, like if I'm focusing on myself, I'm taking away from my family and my children.
Mm.
And that's so backwards. It really is so backwards because like you said, Jen, how do you give from an empty cup? And if we're not going to be filling up our own cup and expecting others to do it, we're constantly going to be in that cycle of disappointment
Mm.
and lack, the feeling of lack. So that's why these conversations are so important because we want to debunk these programs, these things that we tell ourselves that society tells us is necessary to be a good mother
Mm.
or to be, a good wife, a good daughter, a good woman,
Mhm.
is to be selfless and give of yourself and give, 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 give. I know my grandmother on my dad's side, she was very giving woman. And I don't know how she did it. Like she was, she had three boys and my grandfather to look after. And she came from Italy when she was a young woman, say in her 20s or 30s, and she didn't know anybody here. She didn't know the language. She had to survive through the war first. My dad tells stories of my grandmother giving all the food to her sons because they were on rations, of course, and she would not eat so they could have her portion. And she got so malnourished that she went blind
Wow.
from doing this. And my dad tells stories. He remembers watching his mother squeezing lemon juice in her eyes to get her sight back.
Wow.
That's how painful her giving was to her.
Mhm.
She lacked nutrition and so much for herself that she had to put lemon juice in her eyes. It worked. She got her sight back. But like just stories like that, I remember growing up hearing stories like that about my grandmother and thinking, oh my goodness, like, is that really what a mother does? They give all their food to their children and they starve themselves. Like
Yeah.
that story went in my brain.
Yeah.
Mm.
It
And
really went deep.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's also important to mention there too. I've said before about the metaphysical effects of what we do and how our energy kind of body and what we're holding, releasing. So
Yes.
Mm.
that's yeah, we can when we're not releasing, when we're not doing the things that our soul's asking us to, um,
Yeah.
create stagnant energy and cause illnesses. So that's another kind
Yeah.
of reflection on that as well. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, because she was living in fear because of the war, and there was no, I mean, there was food. Food existed. It wasn't like all of a sudden all the food on earth just disappeared. But because of the war, it was being diverted to the troops. It wasn't coming to the
Mm.
villages, and it wasn't, they were expected to give their villages food to the government. And so my dad was in charge of the village garden. He had to he had to look after the garden and grow food for the villagers. um, and my grandmother, because of all of that, she was in a huge program of fear, which is
Mm.
why she was giving her food to her boys because she was afraid that they would starve. And in the
Yeah.
process, she starved herself. So, and then that story was handed down from my father to me. So it's like this generational fear
Yeah.
Mhm.
and lack and programming of lack and scarcity that went through my lineage and to me and my
Yeah.
siblings. Yeah.
But it kind of also goes to the point of what society is the people that, the people in high places, they want to keep us small. They want to condition
Yeah.
into fear. They
Yes.
don't want us to know how powerful we all really are,
Yes,
right?
exactly. And that's
Yeah.
me now waking up, 2020, all of like that year and the things that happened to me before that time. I mean, that was when I really opened my eyes. But there were steps that had to happen before that, for me to be able to open my eyes and realize that this programming of scarcity isn't real. And it takes like it takes a lot of, I think, um, faith. It takes a lot of faith. It takes deep work on yourself. It takes that willingness to say, I was that stuff that I was being taught by my dad, who I loved. I loved my dad deeply, to realize that the programming that was going on there was not mine.
Mhm.
And so you go through that whole process of, well, yes, I love my dad, he's my dad, but there was something going on there that I need to detach from. And then being adopted myself, willfully detaching myself from these programs feels wrong because as a baby I was rejected. So my instinct is to be, I want to be loved, I want to be included, I want to be part of a family, I want to be part of something.
Yeah.
So chopping those ties to the past feels wrong to me. So it takes a lot of faith and energy and willingness to grow to be able to do that. And it like you were saying, Juliet, you're going through something scary physically for yourself. Like that stuff for me is really scary. Detachment and cutting those ties and all of that stuff. But as I do it, as I take the steps and I go through those detachments and cutting those ties, each time I do it, I get stronger and stronger. And that's how I know that I'm doing the right thing,
Yeah.
because my
And
life, it's different now.
yeah, and that's what I was just about to ask.
Go,
I was
Jen. What were you going to say? Yeah.
why detach, actually stepping back and not honing in on the programming? How do you feel after that? Because when you think about it, it's how many generations happened. So
Yes.
it doesn't
Yes.
matter how many generations it's gone through, we can stop it with us, right? It takes
Yeah.
hard work, it takes determination, and it's not easy. We don't have to continue the lines of, and it's not to say
That's
that they
right.
were wrong, right? Like, because I'm a
No.
massive sayer in, there is no wrong or right, there's only learning. But
Yes.
did the best with what they had, and that's all we can kind of do. And now that
100%.
you're going through this, this awakening, this understanding that, hang on a minute, stepping tricks and being like, red pill, blue pill, and
I love that.
I don't actually have to be forced. It's really opened your eyes to so much more on the veil.
Yeah. Yes, and getting to choose, like that's this whole, like this is what I'm going through with my son right now, is this lesson of responsibility and personal responsibility and getting to choose, and that with
Yeah.
each choice there comes consequences and there comes a timeline
Mhm.
and a trajectory and a creation of your will and of yourself. And if you're constantly blaming the outside world for the things that you've chosen. You've gone down a path and it hasn't, you've had an expectation and it hasn't worked out the way you expected it to. And then you go, well, that's because of this person or because of that or because of that. You're giving your power away. You're saying that I didn't get a choice and I didn't know it was going to be like that. So, it's not my fault. But okay, it might not, there's no such thing as fault really. But when you say, okay, I chose this path and this is how it turned out, it's not what I expected, but now I have to deal with it and I'm going to be the creator of how I do that. That is how we take our power back. And that is the essence for me growing up. That was the essence in everything. Even when my father was telling me these stories about the war and about his father being in the war and about, because you think there were 2 world wars in 2 generations. So his grandfather had a war and his great grandfather was in like leading up to that war. So there's this mentality that's come through his lineage generationally that's passed down to me. And now I get to choose if I want to continue that, because now I have children. Do I want to pass that? That's what I'm asking myself. Do I want to, that's my choice. Do I want to pass it on to them? No, because I didn't have a war in my generation. I get to see it from a bird's eye view. I get to see the effects of how these stories have shown up in my lineage, in my family lineage. And I don't want that for my children. I want them to have the choice to create something of their own starting now in their life. They get to choose how they want their life to look. And that's something, that's the difference now from before to now. Before I was kind of like not aware. So because I wasn't aware, I wasn't making conscious choices. I was just walking a path with blinkers on like this. But now that I'm aware and I've got, the blinkers have come off, so to speak, I now see how my choices are affecting my life and my children's lives. And so sometimes I move very slowly, and I make choices very consciously. Other times I just know, okay, that's not what I want, or this is what I want. I know straight away. And so I can make choices very quickly. And I think living life like that now it's harder, but of course it's better because I know, like, when Neo chooses the pill and goes, he chooses the truth and he wakes up and he sees, oh my goodness, like the world is not what I thought it was. And he throws up. I remember that scene where he's like, the realization gets him and he pukes. Because now this is like, you can't go back.
Yeah.
And
once you wake up, you can't sleep again.
Yeah. You can't unknow what you know.
Yeah.
You can't unknow it. So yeah.
I think around that too, we got to take away the whole process of, if I look after myself, I'm being selfish.
Yes.
No. So it's about honoring yourself. It's about honoring how you feel. And as a parent, right, the best thing that we can do for them is look after us, because that then teaches them to look after them. So if you're a mother or a father who's constantly trying to look after the children and do everything else for everybody else, you're actually teaching the kids to do exactly the same thing. So by empowering them and setting boundaries, so they have to do things or they have to follow see monkey do kind of thing. That's the best gift you can give to your kid, is showing independence and showing them how to love themselves, because so many generations
Yeah,
So
you're
many generations.
reframing the idea
Mm.
that it's the same thing, making a choice to look after yourself, whether you're in the frame of mind of in the 3D sense I'm talking here, you're in the frame of mind that it's selfish of me and you're doing it with guilt, or you're in the frame of mind that no, I'm giving to myself to fill my cup so that I can be there, I can show up in my life, and I've got the energy to do so
Mm.
and
Mhm.
meet my children where they're at
Yeah.
Yeah.
energetically. That
Mhm.
spiritually, so in the 3D it looks the same, right? Because you're still looking after yourself, but in the sense of the 5D and your choices and the intention and the energy behind it, it is extremely different,
Mm.
Mhm.
extremely different.
Yeah.
And your children feel that. They can feel it.
Mm.
Yeah. It's on because when we
Yeah.
look at how much energy and what of guilt is
Yeah.
versus love and appreciation, they're at
Yeah.
two polar opposites,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's massive, and you feel the difference,
Oh,
and the ripple.
100%.
So and what one thing I like to tell people too, it doesn't matter how old your children are, because a lot of, like, especially with boys, I've got boys, so I kind of focus on the boys part. But with boys, they don't actually fully mature and know where they're going in life. Well, not all of them, but I'm just kind of, you know,
Yeah, generalizing. Yeah.
generalizing. But 28. So when I found that out, I was
28.
like, oh my God, 28. When I found that out, I was like, oh my God, I've still got time. I can turn this around. Not to say that our boys are anything wrong with them, but I know that I've conditioned them. I know that
Yeah.
the society conditioned them, but it
Yeah.
starts with me, and I want to
Yeah.
be the change. So I'm starting with myself, and
Yes.
slowly but surely the ripples
Well,
go out to them.
that's how you make change in this world. So many people I know are wondering, myself included, have been in this place where there's so much wrong with the world that it's like, how do I even try and make it better? Like, how?
Yeah.
But it's always by starting with you. I mean, it's always starting by just being the change that you want to see, and that ripples out in ways that sometimes you don't see, as with your physical eyes and physical ears. you know
Yep.
Sometimes you don't see the change that you're making just by being in alignment with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that's something, as a mum, that would be really hard, because I mean, you're not just responsible for yourself, you're responsible for these other little beings that are like, you in another form.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard, but that's the only way that you can make change.
Yeah.
As a mother, as a person, just walking this earth, wanting the world to be a better place. Like, that's how we change the world. Just by, if pollution would stop in one day, if everyone decided to stop. Or, like, I mean, I know pollution is a very odd example, but I mean, like, throwing away rubbish. Like, rubbish would stop if everyone just stopped buying plastic and
Yeah.
and
We're talking manufacturers too, though.
yeah, yeah, but, like, I mean, it's that 99% versus 1%. Like, we are the ones that hold the power, and everything that is thrown at us tries to tell us to forget that,
Yeah. So true.
from the elites, or from the 1%, because they hold a lot of the big corporations, of all the programming that goes out. They want us to forget that everyone else makes up 99%, and they're only 1%.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
we have so much power within all of us,
Mm.
and all it takes is just making
Yeah,
one
that's true.
small decision, and
Yeah.
everyone does it. Or
Yeah. So,
yeah,
yeah, that line of thinking, now I'm on board with you,
yeah,
because if the 99% decide, okay, I'm not going to buy products in plastic, then they would just stop making products in plastic
Yeah.
because we are voting with our dollars. So yes,
But
that's
there's
100% true. Yeah.
that though, right? Because what they put real important shit in plastic that we need. So
Yeah,
they
of course.
manipulate the system again, right?
Yeah,
I think
100%.
Michael Jackson said it best with the man in the mirror,
Yeah.
right? And then you've also got songs like John Mayer's Waiting on the World to Change. So I love
Yeah.
that song because there's so much meaning in that, because
Mm.
to sit there and have conversations with people and they'd be like, but the government this, but the government that, but
Yeah.
this, that, and the other. It's like, well, what are we doing? What are we doing to change it? We can't do anything.
Mm.
So we don't
Yes.
do anything per se, but it does still start with us. And I like the part in the song that says, it's not that we don't care, we just know that the fight ain't fair. So we keep waiting for the world to change. The
Yeah.
part in is one day our generation's going to rule the population, right?
Yeah.
One day all these soulful beings that are coming up that have been here before
Mm.
be able to help change the world. So sometimes it's a waiting game, sometimes it's knowing but trusting and just wait to see the. So I feel like there's
Yes.
massive changes coming in the next few generations.
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
Look at this. This is the next generation. Like,
I view our future as people coming to terms with their power. I
Yeah.
mean, I definitely think that, like, how I imagine it is not only waiting for like my generation to come into power. I think that is definitely an element of it, but I think by the time that my generation comes and rules the population, or I don't like saying rules, but you know,
steps into their own power.
I think by that time people will have woken up so much that to, you know, the system, because I see it so much now. You know, I listen to a lot of other podcasts. I have a lot of these conversations.
It's very
with
mainstream now, isn't it?
Yeah.
More so than it was when I was, because we didn't have the internet. So there wasn't that form of communication across the world like we have now. And I think what you're saying isn't that they're going to rule the population. I think they're going to rule themselves.
Yeah.
They will rule themselves with consciousness.
But I think
that's what's needed.
This time of the planet is all about, is for us to come into our own power before coming into power that affects other people. You know, so I have these conversations with all kinds of people, my age, older, younger, and everyone knows that the system is, you know, fucked, basically. So everyone knows
it's not for us.
Everyone,
it's for them. Service to self, not service to others.
Yeah, every single person I talk to knows at least something, and they have their own aspect of, maybe they know it, but they're like that character in the Matrix where he, you know, talks with the agents to go back to sleep.
Cypher.
Yeah, they might be that character.
Gosh,
you know,
I felt like Cypher for 2 years. I was like, put me back to sleep, please.
Yeah, so they might be holding that aspect, or they might be wanting to change and changing and bettering themselves, or they might see that you know, see our system, see our planet, and crumble beneath the darkness. Because I mean, there is a lot of dark, and if you focus on dark, then there's
more dark.
There's more dark, you know. And I believe that's where a lot of depression and a lot of mental health issues come in, is when people focus on too much of the dark and they can't handle it anymore. So I don't know, I think change is coming so much sooner than we think, because I see it in so many ways every day with every single human being that I speak and talk to.
Well, we're one example. Before 2020, if you'd said to me, you're going to do a podcast about spirituality, I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, are you serious right now? I remember standing up. We used to go to an entrepreneur school when we were raising money for motor neurone disease. And I stood up. There was a guy there who was saying, okay, I can, so whoever wants to in the audience, I can predict, like just by looking at you, um, your personality type and, this and that and bloody blah. And I was thinking, this is bullshit. So I stood up and I said, do me. And he pegged me as a hippie. He said, you're a flower power child. And I was so not that. I was corporate as corporate could be. Like I had a corporate job and I was, not, I was not a hippie back then, was I?
No.
This was around 2015. And I thought, this guy's on something. Like how does he see a hippie in me? Well, look at me today. I'm more spiritual and I'm closer to being a hippie today than ever in my life.
Yeah.
So he must have seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. And so that's the change that we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, Jen, coming back to today's topic, I wanted to ask you about, how you personally are making room for yourself in this time, because I think a lot of people can relate to, like, I don't know, being overwhelmed or not having, thinking they have access to make room for themselves, or, sometimes I know for me it was a very confusing topic for many, like, or even just concept for a long time. So how are you making room for yourself after, your surgery and after everything that's happened, after your, I want to call them your powers, your medium powers, your psychic powers have like blown way up.
Open.
Yeah, open. Because these are like really big things.
Yeah.
So how are you opening yourself and making room for yourself?
Trust. I didn't trust myself for a long time because I let myself down so many times previously in the past, right? I had allowed people to hurt me beyond, and that was a deep seated within me that was hurt. So it took a while for me to choose me. I struggled with for at least 12 months, and the more that I let it go, the worse my health was getting. And it got to a point where I just literally broke down. My husband's seen it, and I felt like I was losing my mind. It was almost like another dark night of the soul, right? And I was like, I can't continue like this. I'm going to die if I don't. Like, if I don't die from something like a heart attack or something physical like that, I don't even want to think about where my to me. Yeah. So it was making the decision to basically say, I need to do something, or I'm not going to be here for my kids, for my family, for those who I love, for those who need me. And I needed to make, I in the past, I'd set goals and I'd do them, like I'd work towards them, and then I'd get to a point backwards, right? I could lose 15, 16 kilos, but then I'd go backwards. I could, get on the health kicks and start really feeling good about myself and going to the gym and meditating and all this kind of stuff and feeling amazing, but then I'd go back. I couldn't for the life of me work out why. I know what it is now. I was scared of my own light, right? Yeah. It wasn't the fear of failure. It was the fear of success. It was the fear, you know what? Once I start stripping this away, people are really going to see me. They're going to see it. And whoa, that scares me because they're going to say.
Yeah.
To kind of really start to think, hang on a minute, you're not the person that cares about that. But I still did. I was holding on to the past that didn't serve me. So I literally
Yes.
had to free fall, like the full tarot card, right? I had to free fall into the unknown and just trust. And the more that I let go, I feel like I've surrendered. I just surrender more. And
Yeah.
guess what? More shows up.
Yeah.
The psychic abilities, like the floodgates have just opened and War again, but dam's drowning me at the moment. And sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming, but I'm just trusting it. And then I hear myself, maybe we need some boundaries, and I start putting boundaries in place. Maybe I need to do this, and then I start doing this. Trusting. It's learning to retrust yourself, which is very freaking
Yeah.
hard when you've spent so many years in this. I can't do that. Like, and
Yes.
I'm not understanding self-worth, which is massive, right? And the moment I realign myself, it's like the smoke clears and I see my path. So we're all out there thinking, what am I supposed to do? I don't know. I'm lost. Love, trust, and really, really going within. It helps clear the path, definitely. And then you can
Yeah.
see. And then there's basically, and it gets really freaking exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. And I think something that came to me while you were talking is that sometimes making room for yourself, sometimes self-care is not the easy
Yeah.
choice. It's not, I mean, sometimes it is running a bath and having a bath and sitting in the bath, but sometimes it means journaling your traumas and journaling your wounds and meditating on things that maybe you don't want to go into.
Or setting boundaries around people who make you feel like shit.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
can be really confronting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So there's aspects to self-care and making room for yourself that, I mean, anytime that you're expanding, because think about it, when you're making room for yourself, you're expanding. You're
Yeah.
expanding your consciousness, your being. And any expansion is uncomfortable at times, And I think it's an example of building character through self-discipline at times. Like, okay, I know personally for me, there'll be times where a trigger keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. It keeps coming up. And I do not want to go there because I know that it's like it is a traumatic memory or whatever. And it keeps coming up to the point where now it's getting in the way of my life, or I keep choosing the same thing and a pattern is forming, or I'm seeing a pattern that has been there for who knows how long.
Mm-hmm.
And it requires self-discipline sometimes to just go into it, even when I really don't want to. And
Yeah.
I think there's something special in those moments where you're rejecting your triggers. That's the time to go into it a lot of the time,
Oh,
because
you're so young, Juliet, and you know that already.
yeah.
It just
I
blows
mean,
my mind.
but also I don't always go in there. Like,
I know, but
even
you know it. You're conscious of it.
yeah,
That's what I'm talking about. Not the choices that you make, because that's the point. If you're not conscious of it, how do you know you've got a choice to make? That was my life. I didn't even know that you're
Yeah.
talking about until
It's like
recently.
autopilot, right?
Yeah.
To do this, we do this, and this, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yes.
Didn't
Because
know
that's what
it different.
was expected.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you've got parents who were so strong in the way they raised you that this is the way. This is the way we do it. This is the way you will do it. This is the way we did it. This is the way my parents did it, and you will do it too. You do well at school, you get a job, you earn money, you get married, you have children, and that's your life. That's your path. That's how and I never questioned it. I didn't question any of it. I just went, well, that's that's how I will make my parents happy. That's all I cared about, was making my parents happy.
And that's where we get kind of drawn perfectionism
Yeah.
thing, right? Pleasing,
Yep.
people pleasing, masks
Yep.
of the martyr and all the rest of it. Because
Yeah. 100%.
we feel by doing that, it's acceptance. And then it kind of comes back to the core, the crud and the crust, like we've spoken about before, where, you know, the
The
core is
core,
our
the crud,
pure,
and the crust. I love that.
yeah, that's my coaching. It's the core is the true self. Insecurities that we put on ourselves or that society have dictated to us. It's when we're born, we're pure. But then when our parents get involved, and like I said, there's no blame here, but they teach us what they learned, what they think is right by
Yes.
what society tells them. We start to hear the word, no, you can't do that. That's wrong. If you do that, this will happen. If you do that, that'll happen.
Yes.
And then all these
And it's so
insecurities come
heavy.
all these insecurities come onto us, and we start thinking, oh, I can't be myself. I have to to fit in. So we become something that we're not, which then allows us to put what we call the crust on, like all the hundreds and thousands and the sprinkles to make it look pretty. And it's not until we start to chip away at all that stuff and then get right into the insecurities and start processing the insecurities being triggers, that we start processing that we can actually come back to self and our true core. And that's the journey.
That's that's the journey of life, really.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. What you just
Exactly.
Unraveling ourselves.
That's what you just explained.
Yeah, and I think so many people, especially like my generation as well, as the new generation, some of them, we're a generation of addicts. It's getting to the destination, right? We all want to get to the end. Like even with my weight loss, I just wanted it to disappear overnight.
Yeah.
Not realizing that I had to go through the shit. I had to go through the pain, this blood, sweat, and to really learn and for it to integrate so it sinks in, right?
Yeah.
It's about the journey. It's not about the destination. The destination is looking up, climbing that mountain and getting to the top of the mountain and looking at the beautiful view. No one ever talks about the cuts that you get from trying to climb. You know what I mean? And that's the whole point. And that's what we forget a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so true.
And, when I think about making room for myself, it's allowing room. Like, this is how I interpret the topic today. Is not just about self-care or meditation or tuning into your being, but I think there's another element where it's allowing room for all parts of who you are. Like when you're climbing that mountain, allowing room for your frustration or for your tears or for whatever journey it is when you're climbing that mountain, because so many times you'll be in your emotions and I block it. I block whatever emotion because it's like, oh, I don't, it's not good for me to feel that. It doesn't feel good. And I don't need to feel like this. I can feel happy instead. And I think that's a good mindset to have sometimes, because when you're like spiraling, but it's also important to allow room for the emotions to play out and to come through your body and to flow through. Like tears are tears are the only physical way that our body relieves stress. It's like an actual way that our body releases chemicals like through the tears. And so it's important to cry, and it's important to yell and scream and get into your anger if you need to, and it's important to be able to make room for happiness as well. Like it goes along with everything. And I think that's some of the best people I know are those that allow all of their emotions, all of their aspects of self. Because I'm not sure if you notice this as well, Jen, but I think in a lot of the spiritual community, like on social media and such, and even with people that I've talked to, there's this focus on feeling your best and being your best, and what that looks like, and how you shouldn't eat that food, or you shouldn't do this thing, and you've got to filter your water, and I think these things are really good, for educational purposes. But sometimes I'm at the shops, I've just walked, hours at a hike, and I've run out of water, and I'm at a shop and there's no uh, filtered water. I have to buy like water with fluoride,
Yeah.
So I'm gonna buy fluoridated water, and um I think everyone watching it, and you included, would be like, yeah, that's totally reasonable. But I really do believe in some aspects of the spiritual community, it is so ingrained in people that there is that I would rather harm myself and not drink water than drink the water that has fluoride in it. As
Mhm.
and that's one example. I know it's a weird example, but it's that aspect in many different ways. And when I lived in Byron, I lived in a very spiritual community, and that was so prominent. Like, with so many people that I spoke to, it was people would rather hurt themselves than, like, there was actually, this is funny, this is entertainment for the masses, but there was this volleyball court at the hostel I was staying at, and in the sand, there was staph in the sand, like
Staphylococcus.
yeah, like a staph infection, and
That's weird.
yeah, because there was a swamp nearby, and dumb people are dumb. They needed to wet the sand, and they wetted the sand with the swamp water, and then that's what gave it
Oh,
staph.
right.
And so people would still play on the volleyball court, and that's, I mean, so did I, but I always made sure if I ever had a gash or something, I would always cover it up with a million band-aids, and I wore socks and I wore shoes. I
Of
was
course
I
you
was
did.
I was like not gonna go into this. Like, I saw some of the feet that were walking off of this volleyball court, but people would be walking around allowing these welts and these cuts and this infection to like build up their legs, and they would just walk around in so much pain before wanting to go to the hospital because they just didn't agree with the medical system. And I just couldn't believe what they were
But
doing.
there's something else going on there for those people because I mean, yeah, okay, we don't trust the medical system, that's their story. But that story, I think sometimes when people are harming themselves that way, there's something deeper going on.
Yeah,
There's
of
a fear,
course.
or there's something else. They're using it as an excuse to not to not, because that story feels to me they're putting themselves in danger there.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you know
Everyone
there's,
knew.
yeah, if
Everyone
you
knew.
know that there's something wrong with the sand and you're walking around with cuts on your legs, you're inviting something to happen, like, and then not to go and get it fixed. Like, if you're in pain and you're not going to go and treat yourself, there's
Yeah.
something seriously going on with that person deep down inside.
Mhm.
So they're spiritually bypassing. So,
Yeah.
which is why we're having this conversation, because when you're aware of yourself, when you're aware of, like you, Jen, you were saying, I had to get to a certain point where you were crying and you were like, I'm gonna, this is the point. I'm gonna die, or I'm gonna fix it. Like, you
Mhm.
felt that. Those people are not there yet. They're
Yeah.
No.
not in that space yet. Like, they're creating the situation where they're going to get to that point because
Yeah.
they're walking in diseased sand with no shoes and cuts on their legs. Like, they're asking for it
Yeah.
subconsciously. Consciously, I don't think they know what they're doing. They don't realize that they're creating that in themselves. And that to me is spiritually bypassing.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think too, like there's everybody, not just the spirituality circles, but outside of it, they
Yeah.
Yeah.
Feel like
Yeah.
they need to follow these rules.
Yes.
In particular, right? It has to be this way. It has to be that way. When really, it needs,
Yes.
Yeah,
regardless
of
of
course.
whether it's from this realm or that realm. And I feel like coming back to what you were originally saying, that it's about honoring yourself, honoring all the
Mm.
phases, whether
Yeah.
they
Yes.
light. You
All the
can't have
phases.
the light, right?
Yeah.
It's finding the little golden pieces of nugget, like the little golden nuggets in the bad shit. Like to say, you got to go through the shit to fertilize the beautiful garden that you're going to create.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's
Yeah.
it's honoring those phases. So if you wake up shitty day, honor it. Don't unpack and live there though, but honor it
Yeah, of
Yes.
and be
course.
like, you know what?
Yeah.
Today I feel like shit, but tomorrow's a new day. I can change that, and it might be a
Yeah.
like shit, but if it gets to a little bit to a point.
Oh,
Your voice is cut out.
we can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you
Oh,
hear
Oh,
me now?
yes, we
yes.
can hear you now.
Yeah.
Someone was trying to call me. Sorry.
Ah.
Bloody phones. Lost my train of thought now. But when you got those
It's about
cycles,
honoring yourself
basically.
and your bad
Honoring
days.
yourself and honoring the cycles, and knowing that there's always and you can turn things around and change your perspective, because at the end of the day, it is perspective, and your mindset creates your reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Very true. And I think that distinction that you made is very important. Like, if you're having a crap day, acknowledge that it's a crap day, but when it's, don't live there. And when it's like, getting to a point where it's becoming a normal thing, then
Yeah.
that's when you know there's something to delve into, there's something to explore.
And that's self-love too, isn't it? Is being
Yeah.
aware, like being caring about yourself enough that you're noticing, okay, I've had 2 weeks of crap days. Maybe I need to address this now. Can I do it myself? Do I need to get some help? Do I, what is it that I need? And trying different things until you find something that works.
Yeah.
So that you're not getting to a point where you feel like you're at a fork in the road. I'm going to die, or I need to fix this, Like we get to that point, and that's when we know that things are dire and something needs to change. But we don't need to go there every time.
Yeah.
Like we can notice about ourselves when we're getting there and avoid, like if we're doing the things that we love and we're focusing our attention on those things, and there doesn't have to be big things all the time, then we're never going to go down that road. We're always going to be focused on how to make ourselves choose things that are good for us and that avoid that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's choosing you, basically.
Yeah.
But you've got to go through the darkness to kind of get to that point too. But I feel like I'm an example of, and I want to be an example. Well, when you do get there, when you do get to the point of, actually, I'm going to start choosing me, look at how much your life changes. Like the amount of people that have come up to me and said, you are glowing. Like there's just the husband, like, can't wait to see me every time he comes home, because he's like, it just wants to be around my energy. He's like,
Yeah.
I just love how light you feel, not just light, right? That's a bonus. Lighter, just the energy is just uplifting, and the things that are coming into my life, like the opportunities that I'm being able to do, and the people that are coming into my life, the people that I'm helping, and the way it makes me feel. Like,
Yes.
I would never have thought that I'd be where I am right now 12 months ago.
Yeah.
Right. And stepping into the fear. And I always like to say this is, when the pain of staying is far worse than the fear of change, that is when real transformation comes, regardless of what it is. And it's magical.
Yeah.
And before, we all forget how powerful we are, both spiritually and physically. And when we tap into our power, there's no stopping us. The sky's the limit. And I just want people to try to find their true north and start to look within and focus on themselves, because when they do, holy shit, the world gets so much brighter, because your light is, when your light shines out, people, what are you doing? Teach me. I want to know. I want a piece of that. And just trust, because hope, trust, and faith is on your.
Yes.
Love that.
That's a Jen Vilz quote right there.
Yeah, I'm gonna mark that. Yeah, wow.
Oh.
I was thinking before we finish, because we're at 55 minutes, I was thinking it's kind of become a little tradition that you do a bit of a reading.
Yes.
Would you be open?
I'm definitely open for that.
Oh, well
all right, so
remembered, Juliet.
Are we going honesty or are we going motivation? I think motivation.
Ooh. Yeah, I was going to say motivation.
Because doing, right? It's the action.
Yeah.
So let's have a look.
Yeah.
So I'll do a card for Juliet and then a card for Claudia. And then I'll do one for like a how about we do a collective?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah?
I'm down.
All right. So Juliet, pick a number between 1 and 42. I just also
40.
While we're doing that, I just want to give notice to the cards and the Indy Jewel. She's a psychic medium. She's got these cards on her website. She's an amazing, amazing human being, and these are so on point. They're colourful words, colourful language with colourful cards.
Cool.
What was your number, hun?
41.
41. Okay. So I'll pick a card for you, then I'll read the number 41 if it doesn't fall out. Sometimes when the card actually comes out and it's the card that you've picked, it's like double whammy. It's like it puts behind it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the card that I've picked is number 18, and it says, "Your excuses are bullshit." Bullshit. Hang on, what have I done with the? Goodness me. Hang on a second. Give me 2 seconds. I've misplaced the actual book. Where is it? Yeah, I had it on the wrong one. Number 18 is "Your excuses are bullshit." And it says, "Your comfort zone of mediocrity has had its fucking day. Take off the victim hat. It doesn't suit you. Move away from that shit and remember your awesomeness. Your voice should be saying, my time is now." And you said 41.
Yeah.
You are fucking... Can we just be kind to you for a minute? You already have that voice in your head. Make it say nice things about you for a change. You truly fucking deserve from you and from everyone else. Your voice should be saying, I really am awesome.
Okay.
You really are awesome, Juliet.
Oh, that's tough.
All right. Number between 1 and 42. Oh, that one. There we go.
Oh.
It's already come out.
17.
So the number that's come out for me from me is just fucking do it. Just do it. Just do it.
That's very pertinent right now.
I know you can do it. You know you can do it, and the universe wants you to stop fucking around and actually do it. Get your emotional ass up and about so you don't regret the shit that you have not done when you're old and you die. Your voice should be saying, I can do it.
Yeah.
And what was your number? It was 17.
17.
Outsource it.
Oh, interesting.
You don't have time for that. You don't have time for that shit. Stop being a tight ass and pay someone else to do it. They'll probably do a better job anyway. You giving
Yeah,
them a
right.
job and them giving you what you need will open you up the fuck up to abundance. Your voice should be saying support is available.
Both of them are very pertinent right now. Yep.
I feel the same.
Let's
Yeah.
do a bit of a collective read. Okay. Pull 3 cards. So if you're watching these, pick numbers 1, 2, or 3 and really feel into what you need to know. Card number 1 is
That fell out too.
this is very fitting for today. Fuck family history and do it anyway. Right? Do it anyway. This is number 1. Long generation lines of guilt and other useless shit are not your problem. Take an honest peek at all the relatives who shit you. Around the fuckery that they waded through and light up the fucking world like you know you can. Your voice should be saying, I walk my own path.
Yeah.
That was 1. Right?
That's
That was
so weird.
That's amazing.
Number 2. It's fitting that came out first, right?
Oh, 100%.
Tell them to fuck off. Powerfully. So tell them to fuck off. Not everyone is here to see you succeed. Cut loose or they're probably holding you trouble because they digged around when they had their chance too. Yeah. You don't have energy to waste on their fuckery. Your voice, I can do this on my own. And number 3, lucky last. Why the fuck aren't you doing it now? Why?
Wow.
Your brain's fucked up excuses are fear-based. Tell it to shut the fuck up and listen to your heart. If shit turns out brilliantly, trust yourself to give it a crack. Your voice should be saying, it's my turn to shine. I feel like those 3 were just exactly fitting to what this whole conversation has been about.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And number 3 was similar to the one that I got too. Do it now. Yeah.
Which is probably collective, and you're in that collective. So that's like, pull the finger out, love.
Yeah.
Get going.
Oh, Jen, it's been amazing talking to you today. Thank you for your time. We won't leave it so long.
I always love coming. Sorry, I think there's a bit of a delay here. I always love coming on and speaking. It's always enlightenment, and I take things away too. I love it.
Oh, good. Yeah, oh, good. I'm glad.
I really just love your shining light, and you look incredible. You look so much. I will agree with everyone. Like, you have a new buffed aura, you know? Someone's done wax on myself on your aura. So
she did it to herself.
You really are glowing, and you're so wise and beautiful, and every time you come on, I just think that you're doing so much for humanity with everything that you do. So thank you for sharing yourself with us. Your wisdom with us, and we're really honored to have you on again, and we'll make sure that it's not too long until next time.
Yes. Mwah.
No problem. Amazing, guys. You enjoy the rest of your day and have a blessed weekend.
You too. Till next time.
Thank you, everyone, as well, for watching.